Tuesday, August 5th well, it was going to be 10 a.m., but it's about 10:15 a.m. We're so sorry for the delay. We were fighting the tech gremlins, but we prevailed. Uh, Welcome to the State of Freedom. I'm Danielle. I'm joined by my partner in truth, Chris Alexander. We are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. And today we're picking back up on the theme of MAHA and public health with Louisiana Surgeon General Dr. Ralph Abraham. We're so honored to have you with us, Dr. Abraham. Before we get into the conversation today, let me read the scripture of the day.
Okay.
It is Galatians chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. And it says, "Let everyone be devoted to fulfill the work God has given them to do with excellence, and their joy will be in doing what's right and being themselves, and not in being affirmed by others." Every believer is ultimately responsible for his or her own conscience. And as I was reading that this morning, I was reminded I have a friend who sometimes jokes that the Lord tells her to keep her eyes on her own paper. And you'll remember that from school. And that's what this scripture reminds me. The Lord has called us each to our own individual assignments and our own life and our own calling and our own destiny. And He's the one who assesses our work. And His assessment of our work is what matters, not that of the people around us. So no matter how much we love and respect them, the people around us, we're not accountable to them for our conscience, for living in purity, for doing our work to the best of our ability. That's between us and the Lord. And comparison and people pleasing don't get us very far with the Lord, and they only undermine us in the work He's called us to do and the person He's called us to be. So to live honestly before the Lord means leaving behind what others may think or say and choosing to be diligent in all that the Lord has called us to do and who He's called us to be. And I know in this time of awakening, a lot of us have had to come to terms with that in our own way over the last 5 years. But let this be a good affirmation today. We live and work for an audience of one, and that's the Lord King Jesus.
Danielle, all of us, that's very powerful from Galatians. And as you were praying that, I was thinking, I guess all of us at one point or another over the past 5 years have had to sort of choose where we stand, choose what we believe in, and what we're willing to tolerate and what we're not willing to tolerate
Yeah.
from our government. And those choices have been, all had opportunities to make those choices. But you're so right. In making those choices, we can't look to what is going to be the most popular or what is going to give us the greatest affirmation from the biggest number of people, or else we end up making decisions that are really not the right ones and not
Yeah.
consistent with God's glory. Um, speaking of someone who really throughout his career, but certainly since he's been the new Surgeon General, has made decisions that were uh, truly needed for our state and very refreshing and vindicating for citizens in our state. And it's such a pleasure to have Dr. Ralph Abraham with us today. Doc, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, the Office of Surgeon General, Dr. Abraham, was created, what, a year ago? Uh,
Yeah, a little more than a year, July of 2024.
yeah. Within the Department of Health here in Louisiana.
That's
What
correct.
is Doc, what is the scope of your duties now? Has anything changed?
It
Uh,
has.
Tell us about specifically what the scope of your responsibilities are as the Surgeon General.
When you're Secretary of LDH, which I was originally when Governor Landry assumed office, we handled Medicaid, a lot of public health issues. It's a big tent, like all public health organizations are in each state. The Surgeon General, basically two or three major rabbit holes that we control. Public policy, health policy, not only for Medicaid, but for the entire population of the state. And also under the Surgeon General title, we have emergency preparedness. So we really get busy when hurricanes, fires. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, we had an ice storm last year. Go figure that.
Crazy.
But whenever you get these natural or even man-made disasters, the Office of the Surgeon General then comes to the forefront. So a lot of moving parts. We are continuing to grow. Our staff is small right now, but it is getting bigger. The governor is allowing us to expand our footprint in the health sector. So we're looking forward to it. I think we can do a lot of good. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the MAHA movement, as we should. And Louisiana, with Governor Landry, President Trump, RFK Jr., we are leading the nation right now in this MAHA movement. And I'm very proud of that.
Would you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit? I know that RFK Jr. came for a visit, and
Yeah.
we touched on it with Dr. Coleman last week, but we didn't get into too much of it. We'd love to hear kind of your sense of his visit, some of the highlights, and his impression of how Louisiana's doing when it comes to the MAHA agenda.
Well, Dr. White is what we call him, Dr. Coleman. He's phenomenally smart, a brilliant surgeon, and we're lucky to have him lend his talent to the public service of Louisiana. We had never met him per se, but he came down, and the governor, of course, knew him pretty well, as he knows the entire administration very well up in D.C. And it was a meeting, certainly of minds, mine being the least of the crowd there. We had met with Pennington Biomedical, which is a huge research firm in Louisiana, but it also has national and now global, uh, fingers that it's touching across the globe. They're doing great research on obesity, on this MAHA movement, food, nutrition, all those things that incorporated or that are incorporated under MAHA. So RFK Jr. came down and certainly wanted to see what was going on, meet the players, look them in the eye. We had a press conference because of SB Bill 14, the MAHA bill that was authored by our great Senator McMath, a great bill. And that set the tone, but it also set the wheels in motion for that first big step that Louisiana was taking to get in front of this movement. And it is truly a national movement right now. We sat down. We had the press conference, and we sat down with Secretary Kennedy for lunch. Had some wonderful people in the room. Talked about a lot of
What was
things.
on the menu?
Of course, it was very heart healthy. You could choose from fish. There was some meat, but it was very lean. Certainly green vegetables, some fruits. Uh, the dessert was very, very small. I'm a dessert guy.
It
Back
was
in
good, just not enough of it.
back in medical school,
Mm.
I'm of the age we didn't have any cell phone. We had pagers, and of course, when you train and learn your profession in a public hospital, it's very, very busy. So, in my situation, when I could eat, when I had time to eat, I would always eat my dessert first because I wanted to make sure I got it.
You got that in.
I got that in. And then if I had time, if that crazy beeper didn't go off, which it incessantly did, then
That's
I'd eat the rest of the meal.
a
Uh,
hard choice.
yeah, it is a hard choice. But anyway, it was good dining, good company, and a good conversation. Now, going back to Dr. White Coleman, his area of expertise among many is what he wants us to do in the Surgeon General office in uh, in combination or with the same effort as the federal level with certainly RFK Jr. and his staff at HHS and the FDA with Dr. McCary, all those people, Dr. Budakari, he's talked to them all. And the thing that we have, the thing that every states have that we're finding out is we have all this data, but nobody can really access it and use it for what it's meant to be. At LDH, we have, as he's talked to you guys last week, we have probably 20 different servers that don't talk to each other. So we have this wealth of data that we can't even understand or talk to, certainly not extract anything that we need to extract. So that was a large part of the conversation at lunch, was how we can partner with the federal level, RFK Jr. specifically, let them hopefully come in and mine the data that we have and then open source it. Let those that can are trained to look at this data, just peel the onion off a layer at a time, and let's see what they come up with. I think there's phenomenal statistics there, but we need someone with the ability to put those dots together and connect them in a way that's meaningful. And that's what that was a big part of the conversation.
Yeah. You're talking about, Dr. Abraham, like a centralized database.
Yeah, we
Uh,
would love it. We just don't
yeah.
have it at MDH
No, we
yet.
don't have it now. Right. Yeah.
And what we're finding out when we're talking to our other states, the other surgeon generals, the other public health officials, they don't have it either. And again, we know there are answers there that would benefit the American population, but we got to be able to access that information, and then we got to have the smarts to use it.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You talked a few minutes ago, Dr. Abraham, about public policy with regard to responding to emergencies, and the role that the Surgeon General and Department of Health will have in that. Obviously, that would include emergency health related matters,
Yeah,
health pandemic or anything
I-
like that.
yes,
And so I wanted to ask you, you obviously lived through COVID, you lived through the government response to COVID, you saw all the pain and all the suffering. When you look back on the government's response and LDH's response to COVID, what have you learned, and what do you think you would do differently if we're faced with something similar in the future?
well, we do pretty much everything differently as far as I'm concerned. The federal response was uh, overreaching, I think would be maybe an underrated term, but we are Americans. We are pretty smart at what we do. We know how to handle our health. And I've always said, and I'll continue to say, until I take my last breath, the thing I want or the thing I don't want is I don't want the government in my exam room with me and my patient. I consider the doctor patient relationship probably more sacred than the marriage bond, because my patients, I'm sure all doctors' patients, will tell them things that they won't tell their spouse. And I honor that trust. I appreciate the trust. But my job is to protect that trust from anyone that doesn't have a business knowing what we're talking about. And that's where the Fed really got into the room with us. They, certainly under the previous administration, wanted to control everything. And that's why you saw all the craziness with the COVID vaccines. Dr. White last week, when y'all had him on, mentioned about we had some pretty good monoclonal antibodies that were available to us, and I was using them in my clinic. We were given IVs 20 or 30 times a day. But then they took
Wow.
them away, and the question is why? Because they were working, they were saving lives. I was one of those physicians that we use the hydroxychloroquine, we use the ivermectin. We saw what worked and we used it, but the government did not like it. And to the prior conversation with Dr. Coleman, there were concerted and coordinated efforts by the government to not allow us to, or not allow my patients to uh, fill the prescriptions that we wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened, Dr. Abraham? We've heard stories of doctors who actually suffered reprimand
Oh, yes.
and serious reprisal from medical boards for practicing medicine and doing what they thought was in the best interest of their patients. And to be honest with you, that to me will be one of the lingering um, failures of the COVID response of the government, and I thought it was absolutely disgraceful. You know,
It,
that
yeah.
doctors' reputations, professional reputations, and really their livelihoods would be threatened because they're simply trying to act in the best interest of their patients.
Yeah, no, you're correct. They were threatened. We have letters to document and prove that that it did happen, not only once but a lot. And these were by those federal or those national medical boards that probably none of those doctors on those boards were seeing the patients that we were seeing. Certainly, with the significant illnesses that we were seeing from the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
I mean, these were very, very sick patients, but let us do our job. You know, I tell anybody that'll listen to me, you know, if you want to debate care with me, come in my exam room with me, see that patient, and then, you know, we can differ if you want to, but I'm still treat the patient
yeah,
Yeah.
the way I want to treat it.
And it wasn't just the medical boards, it was the conglomerates, these medical corporations, the hospital systems as well. Is there a movement maybe to decentralize from some of these mega corporations that are quote unquote healthcare systems and maybe move back to a country doctor model that I
Yeah,
think, where people can get the attention they deserve?
I would love to see it. I don't see it happening a lot. We talk about it. But as you see, even physicians and physicians groups are now owned by hospital systems.
Yeah.
Uh, and that goes directly counter to what we're talking about here. We want individual freedom, we want individual decisions. We don't want that collectivism that we all talk about because that's what's happening now. They put everyone in a herd, give them the same treatment, and expect the same outcome for every patient. That's not going to happen. It has never happened. We can go back in history to the flu pandemic of 1918, 1919. We repeated all of the mistakes that they did back then, and we had history to look back on. But as we all know, history unfortunately repeats itself.
yeah,
Have you seen the side by side comparison of the U.S. from like 1991 or something like that to today, and it shows what the largest employer was in the state? I think it was either the largest employer or largest industry, and by and large, back then it was agriculture,
That's
even
right.
in the early 90s, and now it is healthcare.
That's right. That's right. And, you know,
That's
the corporations own it. As we all know, the pharmaceuticals are some of the biggest companies in the world, not just in the nation. And when you have those vested interests involved, then you get the bias.
Yeah.
And bias in medicine should never exist. It shouldn't
yeah,
exist in anything. But when you're talking about somebody's life in your hands, you don't want bias. You just want objective data. You want that patient to be taken care of fore and foremost. And again, you know, get the government out of my exam room.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I was mistaken. So it was manufacturing and retail back
Well,
then, and
yeah,
this is now, I think,
but you're
yeah,
right.
healthcare.
Yeah, but Danielle, you're right. In Louisiana, I can assure you, it was agriculture back then,
yeah,
because
for sure.
we're an agricultural state.
Yeah,
We still, when I was in Congress, my fifth congressional district was one, if not the first or biggest row crop district in the nation. So, you know, for farming for us, cattle, corn, soybeans, rice, cotton, you name it, uh, still a big chunk of what we do, but not nearly what it used to be.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, your explanation here, Dr. Abraham, about doctors being controlled by, the big hospital systems, in what they can do, what they can prescribe, and the regimen they can impose. I have an example of that. I won't mention any names, but our son's pediatrician, during the height of COVID, was encouraging every patient to get the COVID shot, and even well after it was determined, the potential adverse consequences of it, not to mention the fact that healthy kids don't need the COVID shot.
No, they don't.
But I asked him, I said, We talked about it a little bit. He said, I don't have any choice. My hands are tied. I have to promote this because this is basically what we're being told to do, either in the form of financial incentives, the more COVID shots we give, or simply, the veiled threat of some kind of retaliatory action if we don't. And I was just stunned by that, Dr. Abraham, that type of intrusion would exist in what you said is truly perhaps the most sacred relationship that exists on earth.
For me, it is. And it's never the who, what, and where. It's always the why of any question that's important. And the question is, why did the federal government want that to happen? I've thought about it. I'm sure, like everybody has, late into the night, looking at the ceiling, staring at the ceiling when you can't sleep. The only thing I can come up with is control. They wanted control of our lives, and we almost gave it to them. Thank
Yeah.
Yeah.
God for President Trump. Thank God for Jeff Landry. Thank God for free thinkers like yourselves. And so, we've got certainly some great docs out there in the healthcare profession that do push back against the headwinds that we all face. And believe it or not, we still face on a daily basis from the some in the previous administration. Under President Trump, it is 1,000 times better. Now that we have RFK where he's at, uh, Dr. McCary, Dr. Buttigieg, all those people were, I think, finally getting some common sense back into the equation and basing decisions on data and not conjecture.
Yeah.
Well said. I asked Dr. Coleman when he was on the show about a bill that Representative Kathy Edmonston brought a couple of years ago. And after I told him how unfortunate I thought that a bill like that would even be necessary, uh, I asked him what his thoughts were on it, and it was the bill that would have simply codified the prohibition against any medical licensing board or any regulatory authority of any source from interfering in the doctor-patient relationship or engaging in any sort of retaliation or reprisal for a doctor simply for prescribing off-label medications that are FDA approved for a use for which they're not specifically authorized. And I thought, Dr. Abraham, that doctors have been doing that forever
We
within the
have.
context of their professional judgment, and yet they weren't being allowed to do it. And so, I thought that bill was necessary, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's crazy that you have to go to the to that extent just to do what you're trying to do. And to your point, Chris, yeah, we have always, doctors have, we will continue to use drugs off label because two reasons: one, they're safe, and two, they work. The way it works in getting a drug approved by the FDA is monumental paperwork, lawyers, takes years, and it takes millions and millions of dollars. So what the drug companies do, they just go after the one thing that they want that drug approved for, although they
Yeah.
know there are others that it works for. And again, that's just a very common part of medicine that we do. We understand. The patients know. We know, and we have that conversation. But again, that conversation is between me and my patient in that exam room. And if
Yeah.
we decide, if my patient and I decide that this is the best course of action, I don't want anybody telling me different. Get out of my way. Let me treat my patient. And if we have a bad outcome, that's on me. I've assumed that liability already, and we've had that discussion. So we're grown ups here. Treat us like that. We're professionals here. Treat us like that. And I can't say it enough. Just get out of my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think based on the conversation about the conglomerates, that is probably still very much necessary if it would get the corporate aspect of it out of medicine, out of the doctor's ability to prescribe for their patient.
Well, Dr. White and y'all had a great conversation last time, about third party interference in medicine,
Yeah.
and it does need to go away. There are so many people with their fingers in the pie, and the pie for them, of course, is money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't.
it always seems to come. It always seems to come
Yeah,
down to money.
yeah,
Two things I've noticed about this, Dr. Abraham. It always seems to come down to money. Number one, and more often than not, it seems like the regulators, the people who are regulating the practitioners, whether it's in law or in medicine or whatever it is, very often have never set foot inside of a doctor's office, very often have never treated a patient. I think that's just truly unfortunate that the people who are telling you what to do have never done it.
yeah. That would be like me telling some train engineer how to drive his train. I don't have a clue, but
Exactly.
at least I admit I don't have a clue. And
Exactly.
I'm going to let him drive that train. I don't want to drive the train.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think it's in
you
your best interest to admit that you don't have a clue in that situation.
uh, so we've got to allow those that are trained to do their job, and it's difficult because what we're talking about right now, this corporate influence, this third party influence, this influence, these pharmaceutical influences. I mean, they never end.
Yeah.
But again, I go back, and I hate to say it, but I think it's very true. Most of the time it's about the money.
Yeah.
I've always told my patients, we jokingly, they say, if they make a comment, oh, you're just a doc, got plenty of money. I tell them, you know, you've never seen a poor doctor if they're willing to work. You got to go to work. You've got to see patients. You got to put your boots on every day. And just like the rest of the population in the United States of America, you got to do that 8 to 5, and it's usually longer than that. But you've got to put the time in. And these corporate entities, these third-party entities, they're not willing to do that. But at the same time, they want to influence what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
No,
squeeze.
and
Squeeze.
squeeze you
Right, and
and
they do.
squeeze you. You know,
Eh,
there's a. Oh, go ahead, Danielle. I can ask him after.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was just going to say, with regard to experience, we saw that the Surgeon General of Florida has come out and made over the last couple of years, probably starting in 22, some pretty strong statements against the COVID vaccine, specifically the mRNA vaccines.
Yeah.
What has your office made any similar statements or recommendations for the people of Louisiana? I know the time is different. Obviously, we're not in the throes of things, but has your office come out specifically on those issues?
Absolutely. We're Dr. Whiteshed and I are both, and certainly at the office itself, everyone knows we are no fans of the COVID vaccine. Dr. Ladapo in Florida is doing a wonderful job. We've had good conversations with him and his staff. We would, love to pair, and we've talked about pairing up and putting out joint statements with these vaccinations. You see, or certainly I see daily vaccine injury from the vaccine. I've said it publicly. I've put it in print. I can defend it.
Including your deputy surgeon general.
Yes, you talk to our cardiologists that we use. You talk to our ophthalmologists like Dr. White. You talk to any specialist, and they are seeing far more patients with either arrhythmias, some eye issues, inflammatory conditions, you name it, we're seeing it. And the only common thread is that they had the COVID shot.
Wow. Do you think that there is any circumstance, well, let me ask you this. I know you're not a vaccine expert by training, Dr. Abraham, but uh, are there any what is your general view on vaccines based on everything we know about them at this point? Number one. And the second part of the question is, do you think there's a circumstance in which the government could and should mandate a vaccine?
Look, some vaccines are good. Let's take a tetanus vaccine, life saving. If you don't have tetanus, you step on a rusty nail, you're going to die. Okay, we know that. We can talk about the MMR, we can talk about the RSV, all those vaccines that do some good, but those are the attenuated vaccines, the attenuated live vaccines. Now that we've got this new mRNA type vaccine from this COVID, guess what? Every other vaccine going forward is going to probably be an mRNA vaccine. We now had enough I think uncovering of data from the pharmaceuticals is like pulling teeth, by the way, to get that stuff. That we know that they knew that there was some significant problems with that particular type of vaccine. Does it have some DNA incorporated into it? I don't know. It might. What does that mean? We don't know. We may know in 20 years, but we certainly don't know now. But what we do know is that this is a new type of vaccination that hit the market untested like most vaccines historically have been. They gave it to literally everyone on the planet, not just in the United States. And now we are seeing the results of that in so many ways.
Yeah.
I've got so many people that come in daily in my clinic when I practice that have these very vague symptoms: chronic fatigue, brain fog, certainly the arrhythmia, certainly the joints are hurting, things that they never had before, but now they do.
Yeah. Strong circumstantial evidence, isn't it?
Well, I
Uh,
don't know, Chris. What we do, there is, it's a lot of it is circumstantial, but a lot of it is objective data too. We run the spike proteins on our patients, and that gives us an objective baseline
Yeah.
to determine how much spike protein they have in their system. And if you have, and this is me personally talking from my experience, but I've been at it long enough that I'm pretty sure of what I'm fixing to tell you. With the, if you had the COVID disease, you're going to get the spike protein, but it's not to the level that the vaccination calls, and it doesn't seem, in my experience, to stay in the bloodstream as long. I've got patients right now who spike protein, they got the COVID shot, they may have got the first one, the booster, maybe the third one, that they have spike protein levels greater than 25,000. We don't know how much greater because that's as high as the lab test goes that we
Wow.
use. It could be 100,000. We don't know. But these patients come in and complaining of a lot of different symptoms, and heretofore had never had that problem before.
Are you having success with detoxing those patients from the spike protein?
A little. Now, Dr. McCullough, as we all know, great guy, love him to death. Talked to him. We had him down to Baton Rouge, testifying on some bills, some legislation that we were trying to get through. He's put out a paper, and I certainly follow what he does, and I read a lot of what he does almost on a daily basis. We have had some with the nattokinase, the Curacam, and those types of products. It does seem to help. So what I do is I will get a baseline on the patient, put them on something like the spike detox that Dr. McCullough recommends, and I'll bring them back in 6 weeks, and I'll retest them. And what I can tell you is about 95 to 96% of the time that spike protein has gone down a lot. And more importantly, the patient feels better.
Yeah. Wow. That's wonderful.
so there is some light at the end of the tunnel there.
I think there
Uh,
is, Chris. We're
yeah,
getting there. Again, we're still, this is pretty still much a new science here, a new frontier.
yeah.
And sometimes we're just kind of figuring it out as we go, but hopefully we're figuring it out in the right way.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we know that we know our state's in the right hands with you. We hope others are too.
Appreciate
Uh, but I guess anecdotally, Dr. McCulloch, I think, would be a perfect example of a brilliant doctor who's done so much good for people who fell under the weight of an oppressive government and a
that.
oppressive pharmaceutical and medical industry, and was treated severely, treated horribly, and yet continued to fight, continued to move forward. So he's just an example of one of the things we're talking about here. Thank God he's
Yeah.
strong and
Yeah.
has
And then,
great conviction.
early in COVID, I flew over to Dallas and we had a podcast with Dr. Bartlett, another great guy that was on the forefront of fighting the big beast of the government, knowing what worked with the budesonide inhalers that he recommends. I used them every day when I had a patient sick with COVID. Still do right now. And so, Bartlett, McCullough, you've got some good people out there that are fighting the fight, but we can't let our guard down.
Not at all. We have Dr. Abraham, there's a law in Louisiana now. One of our listeners asked me to ask you about this, and this goes to the doctor-patient relationship. Um, Kids, as you well know, are allowed to exempt out of any vaccine currently. All they have to do is issue a letter declining the vaccine, and under our statutory law, that their administrator, their teachers get that, the school gets that, and they can't ask them any more questions. That is supposed to be the end of the matter. A simple assertion that I choose not, I choose to opt out. That should be it. Um, would it be possible, or would your office consider a similar? And there's a rule that, or at least some implementing procedures in the Department of Health for that waiver that is sent. Uh, would the would your office consider a similar type of waiver for the public generally? I'm thinking specifically of employees who may be being pressured to undergo a certain medical procedure, or in any other scenario,
Look,
a rule or just some way to assist them from an administrative point of view in the
yeah,
enforcement of that law.
absolutely. Look, why you shouldn't even need a waiver in the first place.
Thank you.
Exactly.
That's my point.
That even shouldn't be in the conversation, but unfortunately it is. So now we have to mitigate that. And yeah, if that takes, some type of rule resolution, heck yeah, I'm all for it. Let the parents parent. And certainly if you're 18 or over, if you're of legal age, it's your body. Now, you may make a bad decision, you may make a good decision, but that's really not my decision, or that's not my right to get into your sphere of decision making when it comes to your health, unless you're my patient and you come to see me in my clinic, and then we have the conversation again between me and that patient. But if you're not my patient, I really shouldn't have anything much to say about what you do with your body, with your life, if you're of legal age. And
Yeah.
I shouldn't have anything I should stay out of the parents' business too. There's bad parents, there's bad everybody's, but most parents love their children. They want to do what's right, and they're going to do what's right for their kid.
Yeah. It's just an interesting point you make, because the law currently in Louisiana is that any adult has the absolute unabridged right to either accept or decline any medical procedure or treatment. That's what the law says. So it's unfortunate that you would even need regulatory assistance from the Surgeon General to make sure that that gets enforced. It's
And
unfortunate.
it is, and you saw, I think it was yesterday, that RFK Jr. came out and said that if you refuse a vaccine, now the employer really can't ding you or fire you. And I think that's great. Dr. White and I, we put out a letter when the flu season hit last year to the Louisiana Hospital Association. Great people that work for LHA, that run LHA, and they were receptive, but they were somewhat, you know, I guess, unsure of where to go, because heretofore you took the vaccine, flu, COVID, whatever that you were told to take, or you could lose your job. That should never be even a possibility.
Right.
If you're an adult, if you don't want it, that's fine. Don't take it, but don't have your job on the line if you're not gonna take something.
So very true. So very true. Um, I noticed one of the first things that you did as Surgeon General, and maybe even before that, Dr. Abram, was to stop the official promotion and advertising for vaccines, and specifically for the COVID shot. And
Exactly.
obviously, that was done for a lot of the reasons that we've been discussing here. And but I just want to applaud you for doing that, because I think that that broad scale advertising, especially during COVID, everywhere you looked, you were being encouraged and borderline coerced to get a vaccine. Doing away with that, I think, was one of the great early things that you did as Surgeon General. So greatly appreciate that policy
Well,
shift.
thank you, Chris. Yeah, if you looked at who was sponsoring those vaccination clinics, it
Yeah.
was usually the vaccine maker.
Yeah,
That's
That's
right.
like yeah,
exactly.
that's like asking a barber, "Do you need a haircut?" Well, he's going to say yes or no.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
so Yeah, well, again, that's that third party influence there. And I definitely have a problem where you line up in cars, which they did during COVID. You roll down your sleeve. They may put a paper in front of you that they would call an informed consent. It really wasn't, because they didn't sit down with you and tell you the pros and cons of what could happen. And they jabbed you in the arm and then you drove off. Who's liable if that patient, or
That's
when,
right.
if that patient has a reaction? Basically nobody. Now, if I give that patient something in my clinic, if I give them a shot of Rocephin or a vaccine or whatever, if there's a problem, then I'm liable. I'm responsible. So they're shirking their responsibility. They're influencing it unfairly, because I think they have some
Skin in the
money
game.
in the game, probably. And it's just not the way it's supposed to be. It's just not
Yeah.
right. And again, I always go back to the patient safety first. If you keep your safety of your patient foremost and in the right out front, everything else is going to fall into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get any sense from Secretary Kennedy, or do you have any sense yourself of whether there's going to be a reckoning for what's been done to the American people?
We
Because
didn't
so much informed consent has been completely ignored. People
agree.
have been, I mean, people have suffered so much. So many have died needlessly. It goes on and on.
Danielle, we didn't talk specifically about that. It's a great topic. I would love to have with him and his staff downrange. But yes, somebody needs to be held accountable. You see what's happening now with this RussiaGate.
Yeah.
I hope they get them. Those that
You and me, but all
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
three of us are on the
they
same page on
I mean,
that.
they truly tried to take down a president that was duly elected. And that's, we can talk about politics all day long. We're talking about medicine here, but the accountability issue, it has to happen, because if it doesn't, if they quote unquote get away with it,
Yeah.
then people, one, they lose faith in the justice in our justice department. They lose faith in our country, and they just lose faith in their individual Americans. And this is a country that was built on faith and trust, and we've lost that. I mean, right now in the doctor's field, you see our approval rating is around 40%. Before COVID, it was 70%. What happened? People quit trusting us because they knew the answers that some of our physicians were giving them were not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not quite down on lawyer level yet, but it's time to rehabilitate, Doc.
We're trying. We're trying to get there, but you do that.
Yeah, some of y'all are trying to
You
get
do,
there.
you do that one patient at a time.
Yeah.
That's the way you. That's the way you restore trust. And again, there's going to be hard questions that patient's going to ask you. That's what we're supposed to do. Take the hard
Yeah.
questions, give them an honest answer, and heck, if we can't answer, I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. Be honest and say, I don't know, but we're going to try to find out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's certainly no one in a better position to do the right thing and to know what the right thing is than the doctor who's sitting 5 feet from the
Right.
patient. And you would think in a different day and age that would be axiomatic, that would be just common sense. But unfortunately, we're having to fight big Goliaths that have a very different agenda
Yeah. Well,
than the
they
one
were.
that the doctor and the patient have.
I mean, they were treating the big Goliaths, the third parties. They were treating the
Yeah.
patient like a snapshot. A patient is a whole photo album. They've got a history. They've got underlying conditions. They've got this. They've got all this. They got family history. They don't take that into consideration. We do as physicians, because we have to. That's our job. But that matters is how we treat every patient as an individual.
Yeah, very true. The let's talk for a minute about the SNAP benefits,
Yeah.
Dr. Abraham,
Great.
here in Louisiana. A great event happened yesterday. I think Louisiana became what the 5 or 6 states yesterday it was announced on. So I think maybe the total number of states now who have done it are 16, 17 states, but essentially it is the state waiver seeking to exclude all of this garbage, this toxic dyes and everything from the kids' diets was granted by the Trump administration. So that's a big win for you and a big win for Louisiana, huh?
Yeah, it's great, and I got to give credit to our great governor, Governor Landry. He was the one that pushed this from day one. Again, I think the figures show that 20% of SNAP benefits right now are spent on sugary drinks, candy, those type of deal. We are subsidizing poor health in our children.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Let's
Yeah.
get these kids the ability, let's get those parents the ability to buy the good food, get the obesity, get the hyperlipidemia, get the hyperglycemia, get the hypertension, those things that cause what we call a metabolic syndrome, which is pre-diabetic, pre-heart attack, you name it. It starts at the child's level, and if we can modify that, then not only have we done such a great service for that child growing up into an adult, but we have saved the taxpayer billions and billions of dollars in healthcare costs.
In the long run, for
Absolutely.
sure. I mean, they're eating 2 meals a day at school, 2 meals a
That's right.
day, two of the three meals.
And
It could be a huge deal.
it's going to be a huge deal. And again, credit to the governor, credit to President Trump, credit to RFK Jr., credit to Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture. They're on the right page now, and it's going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dr. Abraham, if you look at the landscape of the rest of our state, right? So about 20 or so percent of the state would be relying on SNAP benefits. So the other 80%, I mean, one, you don't have to be in a poor position to have poor health these days in Louisiana. And if you look at the landscape of individual health across the state of Louisiana, I mean, it can be completely overwhelming. I'm sure, like trying to eat an elephant. Where do you start? How are you looking at approaching this? What's next on your wish list, or where would you like to see progress?
Well, right now in Louisiana, 820,000 residents receive SNAP.
Benefits.
That's about a half a million households.
Yeah.
So, one, it's got to start with the parents in the house. That's where everything should always start. But then the schools got to continue it because, as Chris said, they get a couple meals at school every day for 5 days in a row. So that's got to be part of the solution. I was so glad also to see President Trump bring back the Presidential Council on Fitness.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Get these kids, let them have an hour or whatever of PE again, get some exercise involved, get them where they sweat a little bit, burn those calories, and when they come back in, they're, they may be a little hungry, but then we can give them some good nutritious food instead of some candy or some, fruit drinks that are full of sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also refreshing to see that President Trump's Council on Fitness is actually fit.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'd heard about that Bryson
It's
guy,
like,
but man, look at it. He is a beast. He's very much in shape.
yes,
So
indeed. You
he's
look at
such a
him and say, man, I want to follow that protocol.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. That's why he picked him. I'm sure of many other reasons. He seemed like a great guy, but yeah, you're not going to have some big fat dude being on your fitness.
I don't see how that's really a good selling point there. Um, Dr. Abraham, question on switching gears for a second. Did you weigh in at all at your office? I don't recall whether you did on the geoengineering in the legislative session. Where you have these people, these dropping these toxic aluminums and toxic chemicals out of planes, supposedly to block the sun or control
Yeah,
the weather.
Chris, I didn't have direct input, but I certainly know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that generally?
No, I mean, why again do we mess with Mother Nature? Every time we do, we lose, and we're going to lose again. Yeah, we're gonna go through rains and droughts. I mean, that's just a natural nature of living in this globe. But why modify something that, again, the question, why would you modify it? I assure you, somebody's making some money off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's
Or,
and in a control.
yeah, or manipulating something that they can make money off of.
Sure. To control, as you talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
and it's just wrong.
Yeah.
So but again, we've got people now that now have the courage that they're not going to lose their job, that they're not going to be put in handcuffs and hauled away. They have the courage now to speak up and push back against these people.
Yeah. You know, Bill Gates, Danielle was telling me this pre-show, Dr. Abraham. Bill Gates recently received federal approval for synthetic RNA on crops as a pesticide, and was able to secure quick approval because it was classified as a biologic and not a pesticide, but it's a synthetic RNA. Does that concern you? And what
Absolutely.
can we do here in Louisiana to protect against that?
We just can just shout to the heavens and just
Yeah,
just as and there where that may be one thing where a collective effort is good as opposed to medicine where collectivism is not good, the individual is. But there is strength in numbers, and if something like that is happening with Gates or anybody else, and we find out about it, I think it's up to us, but it's our duty to call them out and say, hey, where are you going with this, and why are you doing this?
yeah,
Yeah. And even on a related topic of like Roundup and this new super Roundup that's supposed to be a lot more toxic than the original, is I've been thinking about, is there something Louisiana can do as a state? I know it would be a lot easier for everyone if the playing field was immediately leveled by the federal government, because our farmers here would feel like we're putting them at a disadvantage because they're going to have to work out a new solution. Has your office thought about that, talked to farmers, worked through any of that stuff?
We've thought about it, Danielle. We haven't really done anything yet because it's such a big beast
Yeah.
nationwide,
it
globally,
is.
and it's going to take a definitely a concerted effort with each state Department of Agriculture, the 50 states, but even overseas, people have got to start really looking at this and talking about it and seeing what the solution is. It's not going to happen overnight, as you said, because it's been ingrained in our agricultural community, for decades, and that's the way we farm these days, and that's the way we have to farm. But if there's an alternative that is better and safer, well, certainly I can assure you, every farmer in Louisiana, I can probably speak for every farmer in the nation, they have families too,
Yeah,
and they want to do it the right way, the safe way, the best way. But we've got to help them get there.
Yeah, yeah,
we
no
do.
question about that. Do you have any, looking at your priorities, Dr. Abraham, it's important for our listeners to know. Do you have any specific suggestions, specific calls to actions that our listeners or citizens in Louisiana could be doing to help you to advance your agenda?
Absolutely. If you see something, say something. You've heard that from the police. You've heard it from the fire. You've heard that saying over and over. Same thing in healthcare. We have a wonderful network of people across our state that they know that if they see something that they even consider is just not right, certainly nefarious, give us a call, email us. We actually take that very seriously because we are only, Dr. White and I are only two people. We have a great staff, great people working for us, but we need everyone's help. And we're asking for that. Just if something doesn't seem right, then it probably isn't right. Let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. One final question, if you have a minute, Dr.
Sure.
Abraham. This past session, a bill was passed and the governor signed it into law. It was protecting our genomic material and data and kind of providing the parameters around storage, who can access it, forbidding any access to communist China. Is there any move in your office to do something similar for biometric data that's being collected through wearables or nanotech that might be used in precision medicine? These are some of the next, I guess, the next generation of data that would be pretty concerning and important to to protect.
No, you're right, and we better be concerned about it because even with these glucose sensors that we have now that we put on somebody's arm, they have little stickers that get into between the cells and what we call the interstitial fluid, and that's why they measure your glucose levels. But if we can do that, we can measure anything in our body, and we don't know yet. 10 years from now, technology is going to be so advanced to where we are now. We better put some guardrails in. It's like this AI stuff. Nobody knows where it's going.
So
I don't,
great point. Great
you know,
point.
I don't think anybody, even those that are supposedly experts in the field, know the potential of something like AI. But the same thing applies to these biometric sensors. We can measure if we can measure glucose today, then I can assure you, anything the body produces, we can measure. Now, we can probably get to the point, we will get to the point where even our DNA can be measured. And if we see something in codes or DNA codes that are uh, skewed or that can be modified, somebody's going to want to monetize it. And if we allow that to happen, certainly knowing what we now know, looking back 4 years with COVID, then shame on us for letting that happen. So, yes, we have had that discussion. But again, we're not to the point where we know what to do. We're not that smart yet, but we are working there to try to get that smart so that we can offer legislation, talk to our people, talk to our legislators, and say, hey, you really need to look at this because it's coming down the road quicker than you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we've known for years that people can hack into
Yeah,
pacemakers. So what's to say they couldn't hack
they
into your glucose monitor? They couldn't hack into your Apple Watch and spike your blood
and yeah,
pressure or whatever.
I think they could do it today, and they
Yeah.
are probably doing it today. We just don't know it yet. But by the time we do know it, it'll be too late.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, it's good to know that your office is aware of it,
We are.
and concerned about it and
We
engaged
are.
in it. And that is that's very comforting to citizens across the state to know
I
that,
hope
because
so.
this could get out of control very, very quickly.
Chris, in a heartbeat, it could get out of control. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know. I want to, before we let you go, we'll do a couple of things, Dr. Abraham. I wanted to commend you on a bill. I know you were down there for several bills during the session, but SB 19 in particular, which finally in Louisiana will make ivermectin
Yeah.
available over the counter. And it's just was so needed. It had been tried several times before, but I guess it took your testimony up there to get this through, and it's finally done. Thank God. Can you imagine how things might have been different during COVID if that had been the case?
Chris, I think it would have been dramatically different. I really do.
Yeah. So thank you for your efforts on that, and a
Appreciate
number of other things as well. But before we
it.
let you go, Doc, I want to let our listeners know that tomorrow on Danielle's The Love of Freedom at 10 a.m., Sergey Brown will be on again to talk about his fight against geoengineering, uh, which we talked about for a few minutes here. And then on Thursday, back on the State of Freedom, Steve Jarvis, who is a regenerative farmer working with RFK Jr. to try to get all of these dangerous pesticides out of his farming, and seems to be making progress on it. And you talk about something that would advance the MAHA agenda. That would be wonderful if that could be done. So y'all definitely don't want to miss that. Uh, Dr. Abraham, thanks for joining us today, sir. It's thank you for
Enjoy
being in
it.
the seat, and I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told Dr. Coleman. It seems like the core theme of your tenure thus far is to make sure that the sacred relationship between the
Absolutely.
doctor and the patient is protected always and everywhere. And that is something that I think is so fundamentally important. And we commend you for making that such an emphasis in your public service.
I would appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah. And
Well,
thank you for being here.
You
yeah.
bet. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. We'll love to have you soon. Have you
Uh,
back on soon.
we'll get on whenever you're ready.